I'm so honored to be here today to speak before you. When Jesse first came and asked me, I was so overwhelmed and so honored. One of the things that I always like to get through to people, and specifically the youth, is why it's so imperative, why it's so important for me to speak to youth. Well, there was a time in my life that I was young and I was a young kid and I had goals and I had aspirations, and there were people that were in my life that would come to the areas, the organizations that I was a part of, and would render specific speeches and let me know their recipes and how they were able to overcome and get over and basically fight adversity in whatever they were enduring at the time. So my late father always taught me what goes around comes around. And so it is always my obligation, but more importantly, my honor to be able to speak before the youth. So it's probably, I do corporate speaking, public speaking, various forms of speaking, but it's always very important that I always reach out to the youth and always be there for the youth, because not to sound cliche, you truly are our future. And I like to at least have some form of positive, being a positive compliment to that. So I'm very, very glad to be here. A question: how many of you in here know what you want to be when you truly grow up? Anyone here can raise hands? Okay, very cool, very cool. At the age of 4 years old, I knew what I wanted to do with my life. I knew what I wanted to be. I wanted to be champion of the world. I wanted to be world boxing champion of the world. And it was because I saw an individual by the name of Mr. Muhammad Ali. And the first time I saw him, it was equivalent to seeing Superman. It was equivalent to seeing a superhero. I didn't properly know how to express what I was feeling inside, but I was totally trying to imitate his actions at 4 years old. Now, you've got to understand something about my upbringing. I grew up very, very poor, enriched with love with two parents, but I grew up very, very poor. But I was constant, whenever I would see this individual, I would always see myself being that individual, being that Superman, seeing Muhammad Ali. And so I would probably say I didn't have at the time a vehicle to be able to try the trade. And the reason why I said, as far as growing up, I wasn't an individual that was getting into fights. I wasn't hyperactive or anything like that. As a matter of fact, I was what you term a mama's boy. And I always tell people I'm 45 years old and I'm still a mama's boy. So some things don't change. So I was just in love with what I was seeing from an artistic standpoint. It had nothing to do with the blows, the barrage of the punishment and things like that. And I always tell you, I'm not an individual who endorses violence, but I love artistry. I love when things are done in repetition and done well. So a lot of what you were seeing there, those were endless hours of repetition, of working and perfecting a craft. I have the utmost respect for anyone who does that in whatever their trade and their craft is. So I didn't have an opportunity at that time. So when I became 8 years old, I got involved with the YMCA, the Jackie Robinson YMCA. Now, strictly the reason why I was involved with the YMCA was because my father felt me, being this mama's boy again, needed to get some recreational play, be able to, do things like play kickball, baseball, and things like that, things that kids do. So as we were taking the tour, we got to the final spot, and the last offering was a boxing ring. And I had no idea this is what I was going to be walking into. So I asked the individual, now I'm 8 years old, the summer of 1976. I'm 8 years old, and I'm thinking that immediately I was going to be declined. I asked him, I said, am I too young to box? Waiting to be declined. And he says, no. He says, we We had practice Monday through Friday. It was the summer, and he gave me the hours. So now I had to convince my father. Remember, I'm this mama's boy, that I wanted to do of all things, I wanted to box. So he gave me a 2-week trial. Now, my father was very supportive, but I think when he gave me that 2-week trial, he gave me that because he thought that after maybe a couple of times going, that I would be just like a kid, would be interested in other things, like 2 days, and next I'm interested in learning how to shoot marbles or something again. But he was totally wrong. Once I made that goal and once I had that outlet, I was all in. And not only that, I had the proper vehicle, the proper foundation to get to my goal of becoming, once again, champion of the world. I always like to tell people this, and I think it's very, very important that they know. When I said that I wanted to be champion of the world, I didn't even know that you could make money. So my goal to, as far as that level of excellence, had nothing to do about the monetary aspect of it. It had to do strictly with the level of excellence. I had such a high respect even at that young age. As a matter of fact, at that time, I had never had a trophy before. So all I wanted was a trophy. And so I had my first competition at 8 years old. And at 8 years old, I was all excited and, wanted to get this first trophy, trained hard, did all, took no shortcuts. And lo and behold, I had my first match, which I thought I did very well. I opposed an individual who had a lot more experience than me. And when they rendered the decision, I lost. And I was so heartbroken because I was like, where's my trophy? I trained hard. I did all the right things. I didn't shortcut. I did, I ate my veggies and I don't like veggies. I ate my fruits. I ran. Where's my trophy? And I cried, I remember. And I totally can remember like it was yesterday. Although I was hurt because I didn't get that trophy and I lost my first match, I also could not wait to get back in the gym to right that wrong, to be able to get that opportunity to get that first trophy. I didn't let that say, you know what, I tried and I, did everything and then I just relented, you know what, I'm gonna quit. No, I stayed the course and I said, Monday is practice, I'll be there, I'm gonna work out even harder. Maybe there's something else I could have done, and I did. And so a month later, I would get that first trophy. And during my amateur career, I won well over 600 amateur trophies, and I only have one trophy to this day. As a matter of fact, my son has it, and it's that first trophy. It's a little very cute red, white, and blue trophy with a boxer, like hitting out with a jab. But I at least started on my course where I wanted to go. So now I saw possibilities. It's interesting. We were talking about a lot of subjects on how boxing, how it tied into my life. So I was able to go on and become this amateur, star, so to speak, as a junior Olympic guy. I mean, by the time I really got into the system and started doing things, I was well advanced. I mean, and I was opposing individuals 2 and 3 years my age and was really doing numbers on them. And with that being said, we talk about change and transition and how you deal with shifts. One of the things that I found out, because I started out boxing at 8 years old, I didn't know the structure. So I'm originally left-handed. I'm a left-hander. I write left-handed, eat left-handed, X, Y, and Z, you name it, left-handed. But I played sports right-handed. Now I didn't know, that was by accident, because everyone was starting and you're all, this foot's up front, and whatever. And my coach saw me on a trip doing my homework and he asked me why was I writing left-handed. And I said, because I am left-handed or I write with this hand. So when I got back, he told me that I would have to start training and learning how to box southpaw. Now, you've got to understand something. When I've been 2.5 years into my career, that's changed. Things are going pretty well the way they are. I'm boxing well. It's not like we're making the change because I need it as far as to, because I'm not doing well. I'm doing very well. But he wants to teach me how to have additional depth, to be even stronger, but more importantly, how to deal with change. So at first I did not like it just because I didn't know anything about it. But what I was finding out about myself, I was willing to take things on. I was willing to find out. Just like when I lost that fight, that first fight against that individual, and I didn't get that trophy, it's not like I put me into the back of the line. I still wanted to stay in the front of the line and find out and still believe in victory. I still believed in sunshine. I still believe that my goal and destination to getting to there was still going to happen in spite of starting out with a one loss, in spite of now having to shift myself out to becoming now a left-hander. So my mindset was always, even at a young age, willing to not avoid change, but to embrace change. Interesting about that because it would also start to dictate the way I feel about life, not just in the boxing ring. So what you're going to learn is, although my goals were to become champion of the world as this boxer, it never left, it didn't leave as far as what I was doing in the ring. I still kept that inner drive. I kept that core of that value of the different instinctive processes to be a champion even in life. So I would go on to become an amateur. I would win 327 wins as an amateur to 10 losses. I would go on to win several scores of national titles. But the beautiful thing about this, because I was willing to take a chance and stay the course, was I was able to see the world. I mean, the entire world. I was able to travel for free all over the world because I had this talent. But not only did I have this talent, I was cultivating the talent. I was working with the talent. I was taking things on. I was willing to find out. I can't tell you how many friends I grew up with on my street corner and where I grew up who had so much natural talent, but they wouldn't find out. They wouldn't make the commitment. They wanted to do certain things, stay out late. They wanted to be around the wrong crowds. They didn't want to practice hard. They'd start, but they wouldn't finish. So I was willing, because my goal, like I said, since I was 4, and the time I got started my dream at 8, I knew that in order to get to where I wanted to go and become this champion, I had to not let any form of negativity get in the way. So as an amateur, like I said, I would end my career as an amateur after the Goodwill Games, where I won a bronze medal. So now I'm turning pro. And one of the things that I always had to encounter throughout my professional career in the beginning was, they said I smiled too much. They said I was too nice. They said in order to be a champion, I had to have this term killer instinct. And I really had a hard time getting the grasp of that because I loved what I was doing. And once again, remember, it was not about inflicting pain on people. It was not about being this bully. It was, if anything, boxing gave me this level where I was so content. I mean, I wasn't like a guy who, because of what I can do, I understood what I can do that stayed within the ring. It wasn't like I go, okay, I can box. Now, if someone says something to me wrong, now I'm going to, do my boxing skills. No. If anything, it allowed me to, like I said, have a high amount of restraint. As far as if someone's saying something to me or about me, it's only words. Boxing allowed me to keep that stored in. So, but for whatever reason, the boxing pundits felt that to become this champion or this contender, I needed to be mean. And that's just not me. One of the things I always tell kids and people, period, is be who you are. Embrace who you are. You're always trying to get better. So in order for me, if I'm doing something well and I've been talented and I've been, successful, why are you trying to change me into being who I'm not? I mean, it's not like if I become a mean person or if I'm mean-spirited or if I, this destruct and destroy attitude that I'm going to become a better performer, a better boxer. If anything, that's going to work against my traits. So I always had to go with what I call a term with the but factor. Everyone said, yeah, he won, but He won by, late round knockout, but he could have knocked him out in the third round. Yeah, he, won that fight, but let's see what happens when he fights so-and-so. He won again, but I kept winning. So I finally, I had, certain areas of, you talk about dealing with adversity. It wasn't like this whole smooth gravy train. I mean, I had to deal with situation. My folks got divorced when I was on the U.S. team, going back to my amateur, and I had to deal and had to endure that whole prospect. I had to deal with, once again, we're talking about change. What do you do once again? Do you relent and say, oh, woe is me, and you give up? Or do you stay the course and you use that as motivation and take things as a test? I always like to take things when it happens, as bad as it can be, as a test and understand that I'm given nothing that I can't handle. If it was that situation, I wouldn't be enduring the situation. If there are things that I can handle, they're once again a test as far as the higher ground where I'm trying to go. So I had to deal with that, and once I dealt with it, I started to perform well, and and continue to trade. Because remember, the ultimate goal at the end of the day for me was to be that person, be that champion. I finally would win before my 12th pro fight, my 11th pro fight. I'm sorry, 2 days before I would lose my father to a heart attack. And my father was a very inspirational person in my life. He was very supportive. He was someone who was always there and took great pride in what I was doing in the ring. Every time that I would see myself and visualize myself being a champion and doing great things, I always saw my father being a part of it because he was a part of the whole support system, a great support. And so when that happened, that really hit me. What do you do? When a situation happens like that, you're a professional and you're on this course to becoming champion. What do? Do you use this as an opportunity to now say, well, I can't take this. We're going to postpone the fight. You got to remember something. A lot of times those are opportunities to show who you are. Those are times for you to build that form of intestinal fortitude. It's time to build that emotional scar tissue for when other things start to happen in your life. So I won. I took that fight and I won that fight, and I would win my first title, and then in 1994, and then I would win my second one in 1995, which is that one right there as a 3. That's a big one to me because I was a 3-1 underdog for that fight. I was not supposed to win. I was supposed to be knocked out, and I fought a very good opponent, and I knew that I was going to win. I was so sure I was going to win that I proposed 2 weeks before to the lady that I would marry. 2 weeks before I won this. So I was already in great shape. I trained very hard, but I was so certain as a 3-1 underdog that I was going to win, that I proposed to my fiance at the time. And I would win. And I would, not only the guy who was supposed to be knocked out, I would end up stopping him. So after 7 years of winning, I finally would lose my first fight as a professional. And like I said, it had been like 7 years since I lost as an amateur. What happens? Once again, you deal with change. It's my attitude about when I win, I want to be a champion in victory. And when I finally lose, I want to be equally as I want to have that class and grace because it's finally happened. You can't win all the time. Eventually that time's going to come when you will lose. How do you deal with that? But not only that, how do you come back from it? So I dealt with it with grace. I wasn't this bad sport. I was very, I handled it with grace. It's not like I wanted to lose. And I got back at one, and I wanted to get back to my first fight and winning. And I'll be honest with you, after such a long time in losing a fight, my confidence was a little shaken. Did I still have it? The boxing media was pretty harsh on me when I lost that specific match. And I had to come back, and I did. I opposed an individual who was undefeated, this young kid who was very hungry, and he was very confident, and I ended up knocking him out in the 6th round. As a matter of fact, yeah, I really did a good number on him. He in the 6th round, and then so I would win my other fights. 1999, we want to talk about, once again, dealing with adversity. One of the reasons why my career as a professional ended. 1999 was a very, very torrential type year as far as dealing with the storms. I would lose my cousin to suicide in January of 1999, January 3rd. It would be followed up with another devastating episode where I would lose my uncle, his father, on August 9th to the same form of suicide because he couldn't take over the misery of losing his son. Boxing has always been what I term my Calgon. It's always been something that I was able to go to no matter how testy the times were, how hard times were, if things were going bad. I always had boxing to be able to go into that, what I call that studio, and to be able to perfect or perform my craft for a couple hours and then come back to the real world. So I was looking for my Calgon to get me through this bad situation. And I was going for my 3rd title, which was in Atlantic City, New Jersey, against an individual from Brooklyn, New York, named Stephon Johnson. And I would knock him out in the 10th round. And he would never regain consciousness, and he would die 15 days later. Now, you're talking about back-to-back-to-back horrific episodes. You're also talking about a guy who, once again, loved the artistry of boxing, who was this nice, jovial individual who people said didn't have the killer instinct, who smiled too much, who was the guy who just loved. I didn't have any disdain towards my opponents. It was all just about the competition. There's only, in my whole career, there's only really been one fight that I had where there was disdain, ever. But it's always just been about the competition. So now I'm dealt with the storm. Not only that, I eventually started to have guilt about what I was enduring. About what transpired, I had guilt. I started becoming scared to live. So I had retired, and I tell people this, after that fight, but I was very, very difficult to live with, and I was having difficulty living. My son was about to turn 3, so even though I had exited as far as a boxing champion, I still needed to be a champion to my son. I needed to be a champion father. I needed to be a champion being, because once I started to acquire these belts, I understood that there was a even bigger picture. There was a bigger purpose for me. My goals were now to uplift and inspire people. My levels were starting to go to whole different places, whole different heights, as far as what I can do and what I could be. That's the beauty about once you try and accomplish something, you start to say, okay, I did this. Now I can take it up here. I wonder, can I take it up a notch? And then you do. Then you escalate and you say, I wonder, can I get up here now? It's like, so it becomes a game, but it's a creative game. And that's where so now being this champion there was a bigger purpose just than being a boxing champion. But now I'm washed ashore emotionally. I've got things going on because I'm thinking that I'm going to be paid back for what had happened. I'm thinking that I was scared to run. I was thinking I would call my doctor all the time. Anything happening, I got a brain MRI. I didn't want a CAT scan anymore. My doctor said, you don't need an MRI, Paul. And I'm like, and I kept bugging her, and finally she got mad. She says, okay, I'm going to order an MRI. I was so scared. And, back then, the MRI, you go inside this little thing, and it's like, it's pretty claustrophobic feeling. And so finally, everything was fine. But here's the thing. When you find out everything was fine and you're living like I was living, you start looking for the next thing. So it's like, okay, do I have MS? My throat is scratchy. Do I have throat cancer? Do I have lupus? Do I have, literally, anytime I would read a story about someone and I read something happening, it was the worst thing. I was like, gosh, you know what? I was feeling that. Or if something you read and you go to WebMD, I really got to know WebMD. That's how I got, and it says, you look and you go, these symptoms, and you go, it'd be 42 symptoms, and you don't have but one of them, and you go, you know what? That's me. I have, let me get my doctor on the phone, because, and the reason why I said is because I wanted to counterpunch death. I wanted to get ahead of it because I really thought it was going to get me. Once again, my purpose and my drive was as far as to be there for my son. I had this prayer, and he doesn't even know it. When I had him in the stroller, I would ask God, please, if anything were to happen to me, don't let it happen while I'm with this baby. Don't let it happen when this baby's with me. Let it happen while I'm alone. I was very difficult. So the only way that I was going to be able to come back to one was find out. Find out by getting back in the ring. But I didn't get back in the ring to see if I was going to win or lose. It wasn't about that. Remember, I retired after that fight. I needed to know if I was going to get back in the ring to see if I was going to live or die. Everyone was dying too easily for me. My cousin who had just turned 21, my uncle who I talked to all the time, an opponent, when things I used to read about these things happening rarely, but now I'm a part of it. I had to get back to find out. I finally had to basically come at one and find out if I was going to live and die. I've never trained for a fight in my life to see if I was going to live or die before. It was such I can't even tell you. You gotta remember, you're talking to a guy who was scared to run, but I had to run, and because I'm thinking I'm gonna fall out. But I went through the process and I trained hard, and it was a very difficult training camp. I got into the fight. Not only that, I didn't want to fight against someone, just an easy fight. I wanted to really know. I wanted to be in hostile waters. And so it was at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I was a shell of my former self. I couldn't throw, I couldn't get off, as far as being active, I was very passive, and I was hurt in the 5th round. I was shaken up, and I saw myself fighting back. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't fighting back to win the round or get back points. I was fighting to live because I wanted to live. I've never been in a situation like this before. I was fighting back to live. And in the last quarter of that fight, I just was biting down, and I was fighting. But I was fighting to live. And as I tell people, I heard the most beautiful sound that I could possibly hear was the bell at the 12th and final round, the conclusion of the fight. And I got my answer. I was alive. And because of that, I felt that it was important, and there was a message, an inner message saying that I am this piece, this instrument. I would be guilty, I would be stingy if I didn't share what I had to endure. And in a little kid who wanted to become champion of the world, but didn't understand that the purpose was even bigger for me, and that means being a champion in life. I reached my goals. And to this day, I still live in the process of being a champion. Everything I do is with the mindset and the confidence and the inner drive of that same champion, of that kid, and through all the training camps. Everything's a training camp for me. So I know we talk about a lot of things as far as implementing, how does this all tie into you as far as boxing? I'm not trying to tell anyone. As a matter of fact, I'm always telling people not to. Boxing taught me a lot of things about repetition. It taught me a lot about drive. It taught me a lot about things when things don't go your way, what do? It taught me a lot about adapting to different situations. It taught me that I had a bigger purpose. It taught me how to deal with people. The thing about boxing, that was the beauty of it, was because I got to see the whole world, it gave me the ability to accept others See, I embrace the uniqueness. I don't look at the difference. I embrace the uniqueness that's in all of us. I tell you this all the time. Everyone in here has something to give positive to the world. Everyone in here, positive and productive to this world. Now, once again, as I told you, I've had people on my streets that grew up that had that same skill level, had something to give. Now, you have to work at it. And sometimes there are tests that come at you that you can't let it sweep you ashore. You can't let it keep you there. I was emotionally washed ashore, but I didn't let it keep me there. I kept crawling my way back. And that's not a boxing lesson. That's a life's lesson. That's a business lesson. That covers so many grounds. The attitude to keep coming back, to not give up. That's the mindset of a champion. Something I want to share with you. I always, go ahead, I'll show it and get out of the way. Oops. Okay. So, the way I live life is basically right here. This has been my life in the ring. And many things as far as I have pretty much set for, I do things for corporations, I do things for organizations, I do things just for things for kids like this. So for kids and things like for the youth, the main thing that I did at 4 years old was I made a declaration about what I wanted to be. I wanted to be champion of the world. Now, it didn't have to be something that was I said to the whole world. You don't have to say, I want to be whatever. You could say it to yourself, but there has to be some declaration saying what you want to do. It can be by yourself. I said it to my third grade class. In front of my third grade class was my declaration. I wanted to be champion of the world as a boxer. Discipline. I can't tell you enough how discipline has been so valuable in my life. Everything that I do has to have that drive, that passion, that discipline. It may not be the best, it may not be the way you like it, but I guarantee you it's going to be disciplined and it's going to have that drive of a champion and pride. All those things tie in. When you have discipline, that means you have pride about what you're giving, what you're rendering to people, the product, not just in boxing. It could be in school, discipline in school, discipline around as far as around your household, doing chores, discipline about how you carry yourself. Attitude. You ever hear stories? A lot of times you read about athletes and people. You say, oh, that person's such a great individual, but he or she has a bad attitude. Attitude for me is, I don't know, it can be a deal breaker in a lot of areas as far as the attitude. I don't see, it doesn't cost anything to have a good attitude. You're really not making a huge investment. You're not making any investment as far as money to have a good attitude. If you're telling me something that's going to make me better, a better individual, why am I going to come back at you with attitude? If anything, I'm going to come back at you in my thankfulness for what you're giving me, you're offering me. Attitude to me can be a deal breaker for you getting to the next level. It can be the difference. It can be the difference between two individuals who are standing right here at equivalent levels. Attitude is so important. Don't let attitude get you, don't let it stop you from getting where you need to go. Definitely not. Focus. Boxing, once again, for me, allowed me to have this focus on whatever I'm doing. And not only just in the ring, but it just basically tied in to as far as life, whatever I'm working on, when I'm doing speeches, as far as corporations. So if I'm doing something, I'm preparing like I'm preparing for a fight. I'm focusing on what they're doing. I'm focused on what needs to be done. I just have this focus on at the end of this journey, there's sunshine. Sunshine is always what I see at the end. So I have to have the focus of a champion, but mentally totally in tune. And I will not let, you can have all these things coming around me, but I'm so focused on what needs to be done. So when you're having tests or when you're having certain things going on, you're in middle school right now, and as you continue to grow, do not lose focus on what your goals are and what you want to achieve. I saw those names, those hands that were raised who said they know what they want to do and they know what they want to be as far as with their life. Do not lose focus on what that is, and don't let anything get in the way of your focus. Respect. Once again, to the youth, I always say, always be mindful that someone is always watching you, and that's positive and negative. Always be mindful that someone is watching you, and your actions, even when you think you aren't being watched, could have an effect, once again, on your growth and on you getting to another level. You may be with 4 or 5 people acting a certain way, thinking it's all fun and games and thinking that it's okay and no one else is seeing you. And then there's a parent or there's some other form of person, an adult who may be someone who you may be applying for a job, and they'll remember, and you're doing for a summer job, and they say, oh yeah, I remember that kid. He or she was with their friends and they were a part of something else. Let me say this real quick, and I always say this to I would get in more trouble with my father if I was amongst others getting in trouble. So you normally think like, oh, well, gosh, everyone else is doing it. Everyone else got in trouble. You think that would make him lenient. No, that would make me get in more trouble if that were to happen, because my father expected me to be that leader. He expected people for me to not go out of the way I've been conditioned, just like in boxing, the way I've been taught. Respect this. It goes a long way. Please believe. Cultivate. Whatever it is that you do well, continue. Do not settle and be stagnant and go, oh, I do well in math, or I'm good in it's history. Continue to find ways to grow. Continue to find ways to challenge yourself. Cultivate whatever it is that you do. It can be in athletics, like I said, it can be in school. It can be even the way you treat people. Continue to cultivate your mannerisms, the way you treat people. Find new heights on where you can go. Confidence. Got to be confident about what, a lot of times people, they don't come, and that's not being cocky or whatever, just being confident, having a sense of confidence about you. Because of what I've been able to take on, I have, once again, this swag. No matter where I go, no matter what area I'm in, I have this swag that's within me that's never going to leave me. I won't allow it to. There's a confidence. Get to that place where you're confident in what you're doing. Once again, don't put yourself emotionally and mentally in the back of the line. Put yourself at the forefront. Got to have confidence. Adapt. The ability to adapt. A lot of times people, when they, once again, it goes back to that term change, or it goes back to that situation, me going to being becoming a southpaw and learning the routines of a southpaw. You have to have the ability to adapt and understand that it's something that's going to enrich. By you taking it on, it's going to enrich who you are and what you can be, and more importantly, where you can go. When you take that in, you put that in your inventory of where you can go. So you embrace difference. You adapt. You learn to adapt. You don't run away from it. You don't discourage, become discouraged by it, you embrace it. You say, okay, this is something I'm going to take this into my inventory, and I'm going to have a positive attitude about it, and I'm going to respect what's coming at me, and I'm going to have the confidence to understand that in the end, I'm going to be a better being because I now have this. Atmosphere. I use the term atmosphere because atmosphere is all on you. I like to put myself in a position of people that are going to either uplift me or take me to another height. So atmosphere is, you see a lot of times you read about people, either, gangs. Is that an atmosphere that you would want to be in? Would that be a positive atmosphere? Okay, that would not be a positive atmosphere. Would people in school being truant, is that a positive atmosphere? Okay, so, but you have a choice to put yourself in an atmosphere where it's positive, where you continue to cultivate as a person. So the atmosphere is what you allow yourself to be around in repetition. Like I said, where I grew up, I had certain people that did certain things. Now I knew them, but I wouldn't be amongst them. You would never see me out with them, but I knew them. Atmosphere is very important, but you also make sure, like I said, that it's an atmosphere that's going to uplift you and have a positive outcome for you, not something that's going to get you in trouble. When you put these things together, this is what can happen. Champions aren't just in the ring. Champions are in life. Champions are in business. Champions are in school. Champions are in households. Champions are in various forms of employment. You guys are at a champions camp right now. And let me leave you with this. The individuals who have volunteered their time during this champions camp, I hope you take in what the time and the expertise, what they've given you. And I'm going to leave you with this note. I used to have an individual by the name of Mr. Dave Winfield when I was a young kid at the YMCA who would come and speak at my YMCA. Okay, it's a Hall of Fame baseball player. He would take his time to come and speak. And, come to the YMCA. Now I was amongst, just like you, a bunch of kids. Now, but it was like as if I was the only person in the place. And like he was just talking to me because my ears were wide open and my eyes were alert. Because guess what? I wanted to be that. And that guy was that. And I wanted to hear his recipes. I wanted to know what his success, how he was able to have his swag. Because he had it and he still has it. And so I took in and I listened to people like that and businessmen and businesswomen. I still listen to people. But I was able, I think it was 5 years ago, my son and I were at a baseball game and we were sitting in the box seats at the Padre game. And it was a Thursday, I'll never forget it. And Mr. Winfield was sitting a couple of seats away from me. And my son was with me and went over, it was a day game. And I walked over to him and I said, Mr. Winfield, I said, my name is Paul Vaden, and I'm, blah, blah, this, blah, blah, that. And I said, you came and spoke to the YMCA when I was 8, 9, and 10 years old. We used to have the Winfield Pavilion, used to give out tickets. And I told him what I was able to accomplish. And I told him, more importantly, the things that he said. I was listening to him as if I were the only person in the place listening. I was all in. And I wanted to thank him, but I also wanted him to know that I was able to achieve my goals because not only was I training as far as from the physicality standpoint, but even from the mental standpoint, I was storing in